Every April since 1987, the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence has sponsored Alcohol Awareness Month to increase the understanding of causes and treatment for alcohol addiction, as well as to reduce the stigma associated with it. Local communities are encouraged to participate and bring awareness to this issue, as well as offer resources. I spoke with Dino Bettinelli, Executive Director at Compass Recovery in Feeding Hills, and Antonia Santiago, Clinical Director, to learn more about this disease and what their organization is doing to help.
Addiction in general is, a killer. I mean, the reason it's important to shed light on the disease of addiction is because many people don't actually recognize that it is a disease. And like any disease, it's chronic, it's progressive, and it's fatal. And so it's very important for people to understand that. I mean, that's the biggest stigma with addiction, right? Is if I said to you, oh, I have cancer, people don't expect you to just get better. They expect that the only way you're going to get better is if you have treatment. But if someone struggles with alcohol or addiction, it's like, why can't you just stop? Alcohol is so socially accepted. It's a legal drug. It's socially accepted. And what the normal definition of problem is to the reality of what a problem is it's really a big gap. The CDC, they say that if for a woman, if she drinks more than 4 drinks in one sitting or 8 drinks in 1 week, that she has a substance use problem. For a man, if he drinks more than 5 drinks in one sitting or 15 in 1 week, he has a substance use issue. And so it's really important to shed this light on alcoholism because most people would be shocked to find out how little you actually have to be drinking to have a problem with it.
Absolutely. And I think that the point you brought up about, alcohol being a socially acceptable drug, and it's such a big part of our culture. With that, is there still a stigma around admitting that you have a problem as there once was?
There's always stigmas about admitting somebody has a problem with anything is not just like the stigma. It's just a hard thing to do. It kind of goes against a lot of people's nature.
Especially like you mentioned, it's so embedded in our culture. So when COVID happened in quarantine, what's the first thing people were talking about? Oh, I'm going to have a drink at 9 or at 12 because there's nothing else to do. But that's, it's because it's so embedded and it's like, oh, it's okay. But really, there's so many issues and risk and dangers with drinking in that way.
Well, and that brings me to my next point, because at the start of this pandemic, many businesses were forced to temporarily shut down. However, liquor stores fell under that essential category and they were able to remain open. Why was this the case? And did you see an increase in alcohol addiction or even relapse during the pandemic?
All substance use went up during the pandemic. Right. And I think it kind of says a lot about our culture that liquor stores are essential workers. Substance use thrives in a lack of connection. What I mean by that is substance use, substance addiction takes people and it isolates them until eventually all that people have left is their substance. The pandemic separated us. So anybody during that time who already maybe was on the fringes of having a substance use problem, now they're even more isolated. So now they're really going to turn to substance use. I think that's one of the biggest things. We are social creatures, and alcohol especially, but other substances too, became, people's go-to. It became the only thing they had to cope through those times.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And like you said, the pandemic has been difficult for everyone. And so people who are struggling, it can be even more trying. What are some of the triggers that can arise during these moments, and how can they help manage them?
So, the triggers for substance use in general are, a lot of them are dependent on the individual. People, places, things. That's what you always hear, right? People, places, and things. I think the pandemic took away the positive people, places, and things. So the isolation from the positive left people with that negative.
Yeah, and with the pandemic, you weren't able to use any other coping skills. You weren't able to go out. Domestic violence also went up during the pandemic. So all of that is correlated. So if you're not able to go out and take a break or escape or do some exercise outside or even go to the gym because they were closed too, now you're going to fall back onto those maladaptive coping skills like drinking because it's right there and they were open.
Now, one statistic that I saw that I'm sure probably has changed after the pandemic is that according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, alcohol is the third leading cause of preventable death in the United States, and about 95,000 Americans die from alcohol-related causes each year. How early do you think alcohol awareness education should begin?
Parents should educate their children in the homes at an extremely young age. I think that it should be part of society. I think every 13-year-old and above should know the reality of alcohol, not the scare tactics of alcohol, but the reality that, hey, this is a substance that, we as a society have deemed legal. This is a substance that we as a society, really partake in and socially accept. But this is a substance that is extremely dangerous. I mean, if not used properly, it's going to ruin your life. I mean, of all the substances, actually, once you become physically dependent on alcohol, that's the worst of all of them to be physically dependent on. I mean, the detoxes from alcohol can kill an individual. So it's like literally the worst. What really needs to be educated, though, is what does substance abuse really look like? Like, okay, hey, when you start having consequences financially, emotionally, with your relationships, that's a sign you might have a substance use issue, right? When you start having consequences in these things as a result of your using, and you still keep using, that's a definite sign you have an issue.
Now, what resources are available for someone who is struggling with this substance abuse, especially those who don't have the means to afford costly recovery programs?
Yeah, so 12-step programs are amazing resource. And now with the pandemic, they're even available online. I mean, they were available online before, but now even more accessible. Connection. So we always say that, the opposite of addiction is connection. So get that 12-step program is going to give you that, but also talking to other folks who are in the same position as you, who can relate to you and you can relate to them. And you can talk about some of the stuff that's going on and cope in a more healthy way.
They honestly, because nothing works better than being somewhere where everybody there understands you.